Twitch should produce products that give content creators more options to create content on their streams. That's what Twitch should be doing. It's what 100% of what they should be doing. Esports has been about 20 to 25% of Twitch's viewership since 2015. That's the earliest point in time that I started reading the data. I don't know what it's been past that. And so some of those esports have gone other places. Like there's some exclusivity contracts that got signed via YouTube and Facebook. But for the most part, esports is still a really big part of Twitch. But I think one of the problems in esports right now is you have franchise leagues. So franchise leagues have a lot of problems, and I talk about them. I talk about them pretty often. I talk a lot about it, like a lot of the issues that franchise leagues have. But I'm going to talk about the problems of franchise leagues exclusively from a recruiting standpoint and from getting new people and new players into esports. Okay. So I think that one of the problems happening right now in LCS, CDL, and OWL, granted that these two don't have this problem as pronounced, so we're just going to put this over on its own tab because they're younger. The LCS has been around for a while now, and many of the players in the LCS are the same players that have been in the LCS. And there can only be 100 people in North America LCS, right? Or is it even less than that now? Can't remember. But it's not many players. And then there's, despite the fact that there's, you know, some 200 players in Challenger, and then some players in Masters who might be LCS pro quality and might have the potential. So if you haven't told already, the case that I'm building, right, is that it is pretty hard for a player who might even be incredibly good at the game to get into the franchised LCS. And there's several reasons for this. One reason is because it is advantageous. Is that how you spell that? Advantageous for teams to keep people on and develop their brands because this helps with sponsorships and etc. Two is that because there is no relegation, spots are limited. And if you're happy with your player, why not keep them? Because you're not going to lose your spot anyway. Riot has talked about there being some ways to leave a franchise league, but there isn't really a clear example of that happening as of the time of this talk. So this is number one big reason, is like when relegation was a thing, you had feast or famine, which was like, okay, if I'm 9th place and I get relegated, my team is gone. And if I'm out of the LCS, that oftentimes means that your team as an esports team is gone. If you look at a team like Immortals that got declined for the RFP for the League of Legends LCS, like Immortals was never the same after that. It was very hard to recover because LCS is such a staple game. It's one of the reasons why when we were at CLG, George correctly knew. I don't think I understood this as well as George did. But George knew that we had to get into the LCS and we had to succeed in that RFP. It was one of our big motivations for selling to Madison Square Garden because there was a high guarantee that we would succeed in that RFP, and that did happen. Because CLG's relevance and any team's relevance was highly attached to being able to get into that franchise league. But once you're in the league and you can't leave, without relegation, it means that you don't have to necessarily recruit for the best talent anymore to keep you in the top placings. You can make brand choices. So this is how teams like 100 Thieves, that might not necessarily be the absolute best team in terms of players. That's not to say they don't have a competitive integrity. They don't care about winning. They obviously do. But they are content creators. They are people who create content, and there are people who monetize via that and apparel drops and things like that. So all this has kind of created an ecosystem in the top levels of esports that has made it more difficult for players to get into these higher echelon esports like League, like OWL, like Call of Duty than it was before. Combined that CDL has an actual other problem, which is like a lot of the people that are in CDL are content creators years and years and years ago, and it's really hard to beat those brands. OWL, I honestly don't even know what's going on. It's so weird. OWL has this problem of like, there are people coming in, but it's so difficult to develop like tens, if not hundreds of different brands for separate players over a short amount of time. that like nobody knows how to do it. So I think OWL has like a whole other problem that is outside of the scope of this talk. Okay, so I don't know if what Twitch is doing is going to solve the problem for these leagues, but it is going to solve the problem for mid-level to low-level esports, and by which I mean like esports that are not as popular as this. And I think that's what's actually exciting about what this is. So Versus by Twitch is basically it's their Smash GG competitor. We don't see many images based on this, but I've requested access to the beta for this, so I'll have it soon. I don't know if they'll let me post video stuff about it, but if they do, I'll do like another talk on this. But it basically is the ability for any broadcaster to run a tournament, and apparently this is for any game. So it's not necessarily just for like the games that they've registered. It's for any game that you can create a tournament over. Now, I have some question to how that will work, because I know companies like Blizzard have notoriously not liked other people running tournaments. So I wonder if Twitch intends to contend with that. It's more likely that they just didn't, like, they're just going to ask for forgiveness later. But see, what Twitch has done is really smart, is that Twitch is making all the right moves in making this product, because they are a platform whose job it is to make it possible and accessible to stream. And then beyond that, you're your own brand, right? Like, you getting your own viewers is your response. There's some people that think that Twitch should give you viewers, but it shouldn't. It's just like not really. It can do some things to help, but it's really a platform that is designed from an engineering perspective to provide you the easiest way to start a live stream, and it succeeds in that way. So in the same way, it's sort of a natural expansion for Twitch to create a product that allows you to create esports events or events and around your stream in the easiest way possible. And that's what Twitch Rivals. That's what Twitch Rivals has been. Though Twitch Rivals has been like kind of Twitch's like curated version of that. It's gone really successful, brought in a lot of new viewers. There's been a pretty surprisingly diverse amount of games in Twitch Rivals, like everything from like your sort of like run-of-the-mill FPS to like card games to chess. Like, there's been a lot of really cool stuff, and that's been really impressive. So I think Twitch Rivals has been a success. I think that it's by every metric, and in the same way, I think that this is going to be a success too. But what it will do is, like, let's say, and I don't know if they can get around this, because like I said, there's going to be some problems, I think, where maybe Riot has a problem with people running tournaments on Twitch. I don't know how that adds up. Blizzard especially, for these community-run tournaments. But let's put that aside for a minute, and let's say that they get over that. And maybe the way they get over this, there's literally so many people running like little Blizzard tournaments and things like that, like StarCraft 2 tournaments, that Blizzard can't police them all. And then it just ends up being, funny enough, it ends up being a healthier ecosystem. Because a big part of what I'd say like did a lot of damage to StarCraft in the early days was that Blizzard was just like really, really intent on keeping it in the GSL and the WCS. So let's say that we just put that aside and we say, okay, let's say that people can run like League and Blizzard tournaments. Well, if there's people that are consistently coming to the top of these, they can actually use that as a resume item to then apply for these like greater leagues. And I think, again, like we have the franchise problem in LCS, so I don't know how you circumvent that, because I think it's entirely possible that like the best player emerges out of these tournaments for League of Legends just by winning consistently and being a part of a team. But that player still doesn't get recognized because there isn't enough of an advantage and a competitive integrity standpoint to bring that player on, unless that player also gets brand recognition as a result of this, which is the second component. That not only do you get recognition from a competitive standpoint, but you also get recognition from a brand standpoint, because people will be watching you, they'll be seeing you, and this gives ability to esports players to have a much more prominent footprint, which has been one of the biggest problems on Twitch. Is like, if you're a Fortnite pro and you kill it and you're super good at the game, but you're another one of those like 40 viewer Andys in a category with 400,000 streams, you're never going to get discovered. But if you're killing it in tournaments and people are noticing it, and large broadcasters are going to be running these tournaments and using this software, and like you're consistently performing in like your Call of Duty pro, and you're consistently performing in like Nade Shot stream, or you're consistently in Courage's stream, or you're consistently performing in like any of these broadcasts like Nick Merckx, right? like you start winning tournaments in front of 100,000 people, and you're doing it for what will probably be these pretty significant prize pools. We can already see, even in esports that don't have a lot of prominence, like Path of Exile, there are prize pools that are starting to get pretty massive, right? Like we've seen 10K prize pools, 20K prize pools. I think we're going to see more of that as time goes on. So even in these smaller esports, the power that a community has to raise prize money, in a lot of cases, is like better than Riot Games. Like Riot Games, obviously, if they wanted to, like build a compendium, they could make an esport that had the greatest amount of prize money ever, but they don't want to copy Dota or whatever their reason is, so they're not going to do that. So don't underestimate the power of community-supported events and the amount of prize money that can come from those. So there will be a uptick in amount of people that can make money full-time playing esports as a result of streamers running these things. Streamers are incentivized to run them because it's content. They now have an easy system to do it. And previously, it would be a huge pain in the ass to like hire all the people, build the whole structure for it, stack it all up, and get everything going, the brackets and everything. So this provides a solution for that. Content creators can probably get more discovered. And I actually think that it's possible. This is sort of a reach. But I also think that it's possible that we actually see the creation of individual content creators who all they do is run tournaments. And they start Twitch channels with this software. And they just, that's all they do. And they raise money from their community for prize pools. And people join and they play and people watch it. And like you could imagine a stream, especially with COVID, right? Imagine a Smash person like Ludwig, who or Moist Critical. These are people that have run Smash tournaments before. What if they just do a monthly Smash tournament and it's going to be as big as Frostbite, or it's going to be as big as the viewership of like maybe even like, it probably won't be Evo, but it like Frostbite, sure, Genesis. Yeah, those get like 30, 40,000 viewers. That's super attainable for someone like Ludwig or someone like Moist Critical. Like they've both run these like really big tournaments. Now it's even easier for them to do so. So that raises people's imprint in the Smash community, and people get more popular as a result, get more noticed, allows new talent to rise. And the only real two barriers I think here are the ones that I mentioned before. So number one is that publishers control IP rights. This is honestly a bigger problem. There's just a wider conversation to have about this, like in general, that I think just needs to be talked about and is kind of beyond the scope of this. That like publishers controlling the IP rights to esports in of itself, like owning the football type of thing, is a problem. And then also I think the second problem is what we mentioned before, which is like quality players joining top leagues from a competitive integrity standpoint has a problem because teams are incentivized to monetize and advocate for brand personalities. Or another way to say this is teams want popular people, not good people. I need to stop five-heading my sentences. So I think this affects LCS, CDL, but basically my take is I think that LCS, CDL have bigger problems. A lot of people will see this and they'll be like, this is my shot at the LCS. A lot of people will see this. But I think you could probably you could win League of Legends tournaments all day. Another big problem with these are team games. So if you're going to run a League of Legends tournament, it probably pretty much has to be 5v5. I guess you could do like a 1v1 thing, but it's kind of silly, right? So the team games also make it more difficult to be recognized because you're 1-5, 1-4 in case of Call of Duty next year. That's tough. But also just the problems aforementioned between like teams, just harder to do. Harder to for teams to recognize because they're gonna index for popular people over good people because they're not getting relegated and because they already have their slots. So I think that a lot of people might say, "Oh, this is my chance to finally become a League of Legends pro." It probably isn't. Like this probably isn't it. But if you're like a hella good Smash player that's just dominating in tournaments and stuff like that, and maybe for whatever reason you couldn't go out to Frostbite or Genesis or whatever, which is sort of the typical way of getting recognized, you very well might start coming up in tournaments like this, like Ludwig's tournaments or Moist Critical's tournaments, and consistently performing and become like a top player and join an esports team by virtue of that. Which is kind of awesome, right? Like that's like super sick. Like imagine how someone like MK Leo came up, right? Where it's like MK Leo came up because he was so good. He just showed up at every tournament and just beat everybody. But MK Leo could fly out, had the time to do that, had the perseverance, the discipline, whatever, to show up at Genesis, to show up at Frostbite, to show up at Evo and beat everybody. What if there's a kid online right now that could do that, but they just haven't been discovered yet? I think this allows them to do that. So there are problems with it, but overall, I think it's a really, really good change. And it's more along the lines of like what Twitch should be doing. Twitch is a platform, right? Its job is to provide gaming content accessibly as possible to viewers and to allow us streamers to do that as easily as possible. And so the natural extension of doing that via esports, very normal. And I'm big pog on this. I think it's very good. I think that it will create a lot of new players being discovered. I think it'll actually create, and this is something like I never say about Twitch, right? That like, imagine Twitch creating content creators. But in this case, I think they will. I think that people that did not have the opportunity to be large streamers will actually be discovered through this methodology, through this. This is a method of discovery for esports pros. Because a lot of the time, just because you're the best player at a game doesn't mean that you're going to get discovered. In fact, there are tons of people that are incredible, challenger level at League of Legends, Ancient in Dota, Global Elite, whatever, CSGO, go through the whole list, top of the level in Nintendo, like online matchmaking, whatever, with Smash, but they're not discovered. They're running like 20 viewer streams, right? So this is the potential for people to consistently overperform and also get discovered via their via tournaments. Pretty cool. Like I'm just think it's enormously positive. I always like the ability for new content creators to have more opportunity. I think this is a serious opportunity for people that are outside of those. Like, yeah, somebody just brought up like Magic the Gathering. Think about that, right? Like somebody's just consistently dominating MTG tournaments. The fact of the matter is that like MTG tournaments happen few and far between because it's a massive effort for WotC to support them. You have to like get a lot of production quality together, build a bunch of stuff. It takes a lot of work to put on this. You get day 9 to cast it. Like takes a lot of work to cast something like an MTG tournament. Now you can have 30 of them in a month, and a person could just dominate going through. Like, let's say that you don't even get discovered from a content creation standpoint. Let's take someone like Desi, who's like Desi is a broadcaster that we've had on here. He's an MTG pro. He's probably the best draft player in MTG. That might get some people angry, but I think he's up there. He's like top 10. And let's imagine that now that you, because a very important aspect of this product is you don't actually have to dictate what type of tournament it could be. It could be a draft tournament. It could be a tournament where we only play blue decks. You could be whatever you want. So let's imagine that Desi starts joining draft tournaments and just starts killing it. And every single prize pool is what, $500? So Desi starts dominating in those tournaments and actually makes non-insignificant income from that. Like maybe it makes like $4,000, $5,000 a month extra. So Desi would add an extra income stream, add another method of discovery, and he would consistently be, just because he's consistently performing those tournaments, because he's good. But right now, Desi's stream does okay. It gets like, 600 to 1,000 concurrents. But that's a way that he could do even better because he could get discovered through this. And that's just like a direct example of how this could work. But imagine that across the board for like all these games that are on Twitch, and all these games have the potential to be competitive. There are players that are very good at them right now, and they could just run the circuit just making full-time income just off of the games, just off of community-driven events. I love it. I think it's good all around. Good idea. And that's my talk. Thanks. Hopefully that was informative. I think it's cool because it allows esports people to be better esports people. Devin Nash approved. Devin Nash approved product. Okay, if you like that talk, follow the stream. Twitch.tv/Devin Nash or YouTube.com/Devin Nash. Subscribe. Thanks.